What's up, everyone? Thanks so much for clicking on this video, and thank you so much, Seth, for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. So we are both super pumped for the return of Jessica Jones, and in honor of that, we decided to count down our picks for the top 10 TV shows based on comics. And we are just gonna jump into it right now with the number 10 pick.
In at number 10, we have the CW's Arrow. Now, Arrow was DC's series answer to the MCU. It aimed to create a connected universe for some of DC's popular characters that hadn't been quite exposed to the live-action format yet. Starting with Green Arrow, then later introducing characters such as Black Canary and The Flash. It utilizes a realistic tone and gritty settings to make a fictional reality more grounded and feel like something that could happen in the real world. This helps build up the show's dramatic character development, although it can be a little over-dramatic because it is a very apparent CW program. The most impressive feats of the show, however, are hands down the action sequences. They are gritty, fast-paced, and unlike many comic book series, they use little to no special effects whatsoever. This is largely thanks to the star of the series, Stephen Amell, who does all of his own stunts. Everything from fighting sequences to parkour chase scenes, the camera stays focused on him, so the audience is completely immersed in every blow. This also makes the audience feel more connected to Oliver Queen, as everything being shown feels more real.
Number 9, The End of the Fucking World. The colossal amount of praise that this show's first season has received proves that a comic book adaptation can succeed without featuring something supernatural. The story focuses on the burgeoning romance of James and Alyssa, two teens that are both severely messed up in their own special ways. How messed up? Well, the boy likes to spend his free time murdering small animals and likens himself to a serial killer in the making, while the girl is the most aggressively antagonizing person you're ever likely to meet. What starts off as a road trip where the boy plans to murder the girl turns into one of the most touching yet hilariously pitch-black comedy shows I've ever seen. I won't spoil where the story goes from here, but if you like your comedies as dark as possible, there's almost nothing that can quite compare to this. Even people I've talked to who care nothing about comics have adored this twisted version of the manic pixie dream girl plot. Except for my mother, who hated the female lead so much she said, and I quote, "I hope he kills her soon." So I guess it's not for everyone.
Number 8, we have The Runaways. Based off Brian K. Vaughan's young adult comic of the same name, Runaways captures the look of its characters and setting perfectly. It is a little surprising that Marvel would greenlight a live-action adaptation of a series that isn't necessarily a bestseller, but we're grateful they did. The story follows a group of teenagers that discover their parents are supervillains. While it may have ties to a greater superhero universe, the show is able to stand on its own without being forced to mention the Avengers or the Defenders. Now, some of the visual effects aren't the strongest, but what makes it so special is its diverse cast. Seeing people of color and women in positions of power and influence is very refreshing, and of all 6 main characters, only 1 is a straight white male. It also doesn't hurt that each actor is perfectly cast for their role. It's already deviated from the source material quite a bit, but each new aspect only strengthens the story. And there's some great twists coming up that we can't wait to see how the show handles differently. If you're a fan of young adult series, then this is a must-see.
Number 7, Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt is one on our list that most people are unaware started out as a comic book series. Starting in the 1950s, it gave comic book readers something they hadn't truly yet been exposed to: fear. Unfortunately, the comic was canceled because at the time, parents and clergymen believed that comics led to delinquency in children. But fortunately, someone realized that this was ridiculous and adapted the series into a groundbreaking American horror anthology in the late 1980s. Akin to The Twilight Zone, this series brought all of the creep factor and the scares from the original comics, except dialed them to 11 thanks to its live-action practical effects. The series also introduced a new generation to the grotesque mascot of television-based fear, the Crypt Keeper.
Hello, party animals. Are you ready to bop till you drop? Dead, that is.
As if that wasn't enough, several made-for-TV movies were created to up the freak factor with the help of some big names from the early 90s, such as Billy Zane as the wacky and psychotic demon out for blood. Literally, a key with the blood of Christ inside it. And since the show and the movies were developed by HBO, they never held back from showing some seriously disturbing images.
Number 6, Jessica Jones. Now, as of this recording, the second season hasn't aired yet, so we can really only judge it based off of its first season. But what a damn fine season it is. Now, this was a very different Marvel property, as it features a hero who is anything but a hero. Even Daredevil wanted to fight and help those who couldn't help themselves. Many fans, myself included, were very skeptical at the casting of Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones, since her two biggest roles beforehand came from a canceled sitcom and a minor role on Breaking Bad. But she managed to embody Jessica Jones perfectly. She brought all the damage, angst, and depth that fans loved about the PI from Brian Michael Bendis' Alias series.
And then there's the matter of your bill.
The show also has one of, if not the best villain in the MCU to date, in Kilgrave, beautifully portrayed by David Tennant. His superpower of persuasion along with his sadistic personality are terrifying enough, but Tennant really brings this character to life. It was praised for tackling its dark and disturbing subject matter in the forms of severe drug addiction and even rape. It's a great blend of superhero action and crime noir thriller.
Number 5, Teen Titans. We would not be able to forgive ourselves if we didn't include Teen Titans somewhere on this list. The true power of the show can be seen in the reaction of anyone who grew up watching it. Talk about the DCEU and people can't wait to tell you how terrible it is, but talk about Teen Titans and watch their faces light up. There are many things that made this show so special to the kids who watched it. For one, the animation was fantastic for the time and provided some wonderful action sequences. And two, it wasn't afraid to focus on things that were not superhero oriented. These were kids fighting crime after all. While many of the stories did focus on the crime fighting antics, there were just as many that centered around their struggles with adolescence and the powerful bond that the group grew to have. While Runaways may have accomplished something similar, it was way more important that Teen Titans get this right, as it was geared towards a much younger audience that needed to learn these lessons. It's no wonder that it's stuck in the minds of its fans for so long.
Alright, number 4, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. In 2008, Marvel Studios began its monumental endeavor in creating the first shared and connected comic book universe, and paved the way for the proverbial baby boom of others like it. And from this spawned the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., a series based in the already established universe of the Avengers. Now, what's so interesting about this adaptation is that it's a continuation of the side stories only hinted at in the MCU beforehand, with characters such as Phil Coulson and the organization he represents. In this series, the audience gets to see how ground-level policing of superhumans in organizations like Hydra operate. It raises the stakes of these operations by not relying on overpowered heroes like Iron Man or Thor, but the government agents that have to combat world-ending threats on their own. One of the more interesting aspects of this is seeing the fallout of the events of all of the MCU films, and how this affects the real world. For instance, what happens to S.H.I.E.L.D. after the events of Winter Soldier and the dismantling of S.H.I.E.L.D. itself. Another key moment comes when the team tracks down Loki's scepter, leading directly into the opening of Age of Ultron. Because the showrunners are consistently being forced to tie their show in with the ever-expanding MCU, no matter what their own plots are, we must pay them the utmost respect.
Number 3, Daredevil. The stakes were pretty high for the first Marvel Netflix team-up series. Not only was this going to be set in the same world as the Avengers, but it was going to be far darker and grittier than the ABC shows. Also, there was the severely bad taste that Ben Affleck's Daredevil had left in everyone's mouth. That being said, this show absolutely knocked it out of the park. It takes heavy inspiration from Frank Miller's run on the character, which many believe to be the definitive version. Charlie Cox is charming and unassuming as Matt Murdock until he dons the mask, where he transforms into a ferocious one-man army. The fight choreography seen in this show puts many others to shame. Just look at the hallway fight, the Nobu fight, the Punisher prison scene, and so many others. The show also features a stellar supporting cast, such as Deborah Ann Wall as the fearless Karen Page, Vincent D'Onofrio as the terrifying Kingpin, and John Bernthal, who seems like he was born to play the Punisher. With the way The Defenders ended, it seems like it was setting up Miller's Born Again storyline, which means things are about to get a hell of a lot darker.
Number 2. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. These are technically 2 series, but since Justice League Unlimited is a continuation of Justice League, we're going to count it as one, and there's not really anything you can do about it. These series perfectly capture what fans of the DC Comics want from Warner Brothers live-action properties, but go well, I guess. The original series brought together the League for the first time in a much more memorable way. It wastes no time with unnecessary origins, instead starting with fleshed out heroes that are perfect representations of their comic book counterparts.
You didn't think I'd come here without reinforcements, did you?
Wish I'd thought of that. Oh wait, I did.
While the formula of a superhero ensemble stopping world-ending threats is simple enough, it's one that has a lot of heart. This series does what Warner Brothers Animation does consistently well, which is highlighting layers of character development while also not holding the audience's hand. And once Justice League finished its run, Warner Brothers decided to make a big leap and launch Justice League Unlimited, which essentially answered the question, how can only 7 heroes stop all of the threats in the universe? Simply put, they can't. So, the League inducts hundreds of new members to police smaller villains and protect the Earth when off-world galactic threats emerge that demand the attention of the founding 7. This extension of hero roster gave us more layered storytelling that kept things fresh, and devoted time to the development of characters that most laymen had never heard of, like The Question and Booster Gold. All in all, these connected series are some of the best animated comic book storytelling to date.
And number 1, Preacher. Oh boy, where do I start? This series has everything one could ever want from a non-generic, genre-breaking comic book adaptation. It features supernatural phenomenon like angels, vampires, and even the voice of God, wielded by a criminal preacher on the mend with a mean streak a mile wide. And if he isn't badass enough, his girlfriend Tulip is a beautifully violent and vindictive seductress hell-bent on breaking his conviction to be a good man. The story focuses on the 2 unfortunate lovers and their wisecracking vampire friend, played by the ever-fantastic Joseph Gilgun, as they search for the real God, leaving a bloody trail behind them. And when I say bloody, you can trust that the violence of this show truly delivers. The fight choreography is tight, brutal, and pairs beautifully with the cheerfully upbeat and inappropriately hilarious song choices. The character development turns broken anti-heroes into charming, charismatic goofballs, while the powerfully lovable and intense performances from the 3 leads create a dynamic of storytelling rarely seen from a comic book TV show. Each episode is more insane than the last and leaves you salivating in anticipation for another, making it one of the single most intriguing series that AMC has to offer. The show also delivers a brilliantly cynical take of existential questions and religious teachings that are both insightful and playfully blasphemous. If there is one show on this list that you haven't seen and want to check out, for the love of God, or rather, for the love of Jesse Custer, make it Preacher. Alright, and that is our list. Hopefully there were a few surprises on there, but As always, we are just two guys on the internet and we cannot watch everything, so please let us know what your favorite TV shows based on comics are in the comments down below. Thanks again, and we will see you very soon.